Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the last webinar in our The Science of Where for Sustainable Development webinar series. And we're going to be talking about engaging stakeholders and beneficiaries today. Before we begin, I'd like to give a few reminders. First, the past recordings for all of our webinars, the past 4 of them, are available at go.esri.com/SDG webinar series. This slide presentation will be made available just like the other ones, as well as the recordings. As we go through the presentations today, please use the Go To Questions panel to submit any questions you may have through the webinar, and we will address them at the end. We'll do our best to get to the questions that you have, the time that we have. And of course, please fill out the survey at the end of the webinar. This is our last one in our series for this year, but we will be scheduling more in the future, and we would love to have your feedback and craft our webinars around what you'd like to get out of them and the information we can provide to you. Before we begin, I'd like to walk you through how we got to this point in our series. We first started with a webinar on story maps and the Sustainable Development Goals. We had Alan Carroll from our StoryMaps team talk about the world of multimedia, web-based story maps, how you can bring in all different kinds of information to help tell your story. That's very I think it kind of goes on the same thread as what we're going to be talking about today in engagement and communication. Really centered around informing people about the goals of your organization and your activities, how to call attention to social issues, and then really ultimately inspire people to take action. After that, we talked about some GIS solutions for the SDGs. We had an Esri director, Clint Brown, as well as a few other colleagues from the nonprofit team look at real-world examples of how GIS supports each step in a platform approach to the Sustainable Development Goals. We also discussed how you could get started leveraging a state-of-the-art platform to strengthen, amplify your work in a relatively short amount of time. After that, we moved on to planning and prioritizing. We really wanted to get real-world examples for this session. So we had some speakers from the World Food Program discuss their GIS workflows and how they use that to maximize the impact of their projects and programs. This was a very interesting session. I highly encourage you going back, viewing the video on YouTube about what our colleagues from WFP presented. And from that, we discussed monitoring and evaluation. During this session, we discussed ways to measure results of our activities, which in turn would help us justify spending resources, including time, personnel's time, and securing future funding to build on those successes. We can iterate and improve the way we operate. We looked at GIS tools and methodologies to help us in this process, to collect data, analyze it, and really to assess the effectiveness of our programs. And that leads us to today, where we will be discussing engaging stakeholders and beneficiaries. We realize that we can't work in a vacuum anymore. The world is more interconnected than ever, and if we want to get close to achieving these goals, all 17 of them, really we need to get better at telling the story of why it matters. Traditionally, we're GIS professionals. We worked hard at the analysis. We did the hard work in collecting the data. We did the even harder work in trying to manage the data. But where we kind of fell down is when we tried to communicate that to people who weren't GIS professionals, who didn't know about databases or mobile devices, or didn't have a really appreciation for all the hard work we had to do. So why was this all important? We needed to explain it to them and tell them really why it matters in their day-to-day lives. And this is especially important when we're talking about the Sustainable Development Goals. So what is the good news? Well, we've gotten better. We've gotten much better. Today, we're going to see some fantastic examples of just how far the technology has come, the way that the people are using technology, you users are using it, and how we can assist you in communicating all that great work that you have done. So without further ado, today we have Eamon Doyle, the Chief Technology Officer of Esri Ireland. We also have Graham Hudgens from the Product Engineering team for ArcGIS Hub. And I'm Adam Fisser. I'm a Solutions Engineer on the nonprofit team. And from there, I'd like to hand it over to Eamon, who will go through some of his work and what they've done in Ireland.
Thanks, Adam. And hello, everybody. My name is Eamon Doyle. I'm CTO with Esri Ireland, and we have been working since about April-May timeframe on implementing a website in support of monitoring the SDG goals for Ireland and reporting those up to the UN. So over the next few minutes, what I want to do is take you through our journey, I suppose, since April and May, and where we've gotten to in that journey. Really to tell you what the experience has been to date here in Ireland, and touch on a few points, tell you a little bit about our implementation story, what approach we've taken to the implementation, and the methodologies that we've used in creating our site, any challenges that we've faced and how we've addressed them, what progress we've made to date, and over the course of this to take a look at the site that we've built. And I want to echo what Adam has said and make a few comments about story maps and engagement and how we've approached that, and talk a little bit about what we hope to do in the future. So I guess the first thing to say is that Ireland wanted to move quickly to participate in a research project that was proposed involving the UN SDG, the UN Statistical Division, Esri Inc., and various member states of the UN. We felt that this was an ideal showcase for us to demonstrate our commitment to the UN Sustainable Development Goals and for reporting and monitoring our progress against the goals. It was also, at a national and local perspective, it was an opportunity to exercise a memorandum of understanding that had been previously agreed between our Central Statistics Office and our Ordnance Survey. So we were interested in using this project to demonstrate how the fusion of geography and statistics could bring real benefits to Irish society, not just with the Sustainable Development Goals, but beyond that in various work we're doing around the census and other GIS initiatives here in Ireland. And ultimately, for me as an Esri Ireland employee, it was an ideal showcase for ArcGIS and its capabilities and how we can apply GIS to data-driven decision-making and to evidence-based decisions in public administration. So we had a hard deadline of this month, earlier this month, for the launch of our site at the European Forum for Geography and Statistics. So that focused our minds way back in April and May, and we created a project team to start work on this project. And that project team was 2 full-time employees and another part-time employee involved in statistical aspects of the project, and then there were some people involved in data governance. So we put together quite a sizable team and took this project quite seriously, and that has borne fruit for us in that we have reached our deadline and launched our site, and we have got a fair bit of data populated to do with the measures in support of the indicators for each of the goals and targets. So the main task that we've accomplished was to source and acquire relevant statistics on as many indicators as possible and publish these via feature services on ArcGIS Online and ultimately into ArcGIS Hub and out via an open data site. And so far we've published about 100 layers, and we have indicators, we have measures in 12 of the 17 indicators. So that has gone quite well. In terms of our approach, we decided on using the ArcGIS Hub solution as an ideal way to get started and up and running quickly. It required no infrastructure on premise because it's hosted online, and it offered the ability to build quite a sophisticated website out with configuration rather than development. So that suited us. We didn't have development skills within our 2 full-time employees or the other part-time employee. So it was a really quick way of getting started and producing something that we think is quite impressive. And also it lends itself extremely well to the presentation and visualization of data, but also to providing true open data access via download and APIs. It took us only a few days to build out the bones of the site, and I'll give you a sneak peek of what that site looks like here. So this is the site that we've developed, and we will go into a few aspects of this in a few moments, but just to show you that it exists, and that's what it looks like. And if I switch back to the slide, so actually building that site initially, the bare bones of it, was a few days work. We use graphics that are available from the UN in terms of their communications material around the actual goals. We added our own branding for the organizations involved, which were the Central Statistics Office, the Ordnance Survey, and Esri Ireland. We obviously had those digital assets already. And then we used stock photo libraries to give the site, I suppose, an Irish feel, and we used copyrighted material there. And then we put our hands to the grindstone, as it were, and commenced the task of sourcing, publishing, and curating data to fill out the site. So in terms of our methodology, it was a collaborative process. We had a statistician, Kevin McCormick from the CSO, who sourced and pre-prepared the statistical measures into tables for each geographical boundary set that we had. And then Katie Goodwin, who is a contractor in the OSI, joined the boundary data and tables using ArcGIS Online and published a feature service layer for each indicator and for each geography. And then Niamh Cleary, who's another OSI contractor, created the content item metadata for each layer. And we went systematically through each of the data sources that we knew we had available and did this work for each of them. And it was quite a lot of work. I mean, we have about 100 layers published on this site so far, and that is quite a nice workflow that we've got going there, and we've become quite efficient at doing this work. Each resulting layer shows up as a feature service on ArcGIS Online, and we then applied credits, licensing, and attribution. And we shared those layers through an open data group on ArcGIS Hub, one group for each goal. And these groups were then designated as open data groups and presented via the ArcGIS Open Data part of the ArcGIS Hub solution. And in some cases, we've also created story maps from the layers to promote engagement around each goal and provide more of a narrative. So let's take a little bit of a look at the site in a little bit more detail. This is our Sustainable Development Goals site. It's running at irelandsdg.geohive.ie. Geohive is the main site on the National Spatial Data Infrastructure. So we've dovetailed the SDG site in under the Geohive brand. We've applied this image here, which is actually a Stone Age megalithic tomb called Newgrange that was built 3,200 years BC, would you believe? And it was built by the first farmers in the world. And these people created a sustainable community way back then. So it's an apt image, we feel, to talk about what we're trying to do with the UN Sustainable Development Goals program. So going down through the site, the main area is this area here where we've used the tile approach, and each of these tiles represents one of the Sustainable Development Goals. If you click on one of the tiles, you get access to a data catalog which shows you the information that we have compiled in support of measures for that goal. So you can pick on any of these data sets and it renders on the page. It shows the geographical structure of the data set, and if we pick on a variable, it'll show us a graph of that variable and a choropleth map of the resulting indicator, and we can click on any of those to get its information. This one is a time series, as you can see, so we're showing quarter by quarter unemployment rates. We also have a data tab, which allows us give people access to the raw data table that underpins that map. And these can be filtered according to any of the filterable variables, a bit like in Excel. And also we have an API Explorer that allows programmers connect directly via a RESTful URL to the site, and they can define their queries against the site down here and return either JSON or GeoJSON to their JavaScript programs. And we have a download capability which allows people to download either the full data set or filtered data set in a variety of forms. There's also a search capability which allows you to search for data by tag, and this returns at the moment about 100 layers if you don't put in a tag. If you put in a tag, obviously you'll get data just for whatever you're searching for. And we've also added some video material to explain to people how to use the site, and we've created some map layers for direct use within other ArcGIS applications, and a little bit about the APIs and the licensing scheme that we've applied to the site. So that's just a little bit about the site. Some of the challenges that we had to consider. Data management and governance was the first one. When you're dealing with hundreds of data sets, data management is always an issue. And to be honest, we approached this largely by manual means with assistance from everybody's favorite data management tool, which in our case was Excel. So we compiled an initial spreadsheet of all of the data sources that we wanted to use for the site, and what state they were in, what geographical level they were at, and whether we had easy access to them, etc., etc. And we've kept it up, and this spreadsheet is our master spreadsheet to do with data management. On the governance side then, we set up a core data governance group involving a person from the Central Statistics Office, a person from the Ordnance Survey, and a person from Esri Ireland. And we've since expanded this via outreach to external stakeholders in other government departments. In fact, since we started our project, the Department of Communications, Climate Action and Environment have become the official Ireland lead on the SDGs, and we have engaged positively with them, and they are in the process of appointing a designated liaison person for the SDGs in each government department, and our aim is to interact with these designated persons in terms of sourcing relevant indicators data. The other issue we had is to do with different levels or resolution of geographies. And if I demonstrate this briefly here, on this map of Ireland, you can see that we have a number of different geographical levels, starting with NUTS 3, which is a European level that is often used for reporting, and it's quite coarse. It's not really very interesting from a national point of view, but it's useful from a European or global point of view. We also have administrative counties, which are a little bit better, but still quite crude in terms of any evidence-based decision making. They're quite large areas. And more useful are electoral divisions, of which we have about, I think, 3,600 or so that cover the whole country. And these give us quite detailed map structure for reporting our statistics. And if we want, we can go a little bit closer in and show statistical small areas, which are also really useful. These resolve down in urban areas to between 90 and 100 and about 120 households. So these are quite good small areas with which to work with on a geographical basis. So we not only had to source indicators and data for our indicators, we had to ascertain at what geographical level those indicators were applicable or available. Our objective, of course, was to have as many measures as we could at the highest resolution, geographical resolution, because from a GIS perspective, that's what makes most sense and shows off the system to its best capabilities. But we also had to take account of some issues to do with statistical validity at certain geographies. So where the sample size got too large or too small, there are issues there. And we also have to take account of statistical constraints around preserving anonymity. So if the areas get too small and there's a very small statistical sample within that area, then that leads to problems from the point of view of the statisticians. We also looked at another factor to do with aggregation and disaggregation. So one of the things that we've standardized on is we've adopted the approach of using the highest resolution geography, that of the small area, to calculate percentage figures. So where we have continuous phenomenon, like for example, forest cover, say, what we do is we take the forest cover layer and we intersect that spatially using ArcGIS with the small areas layer to compute a percentage cover for each small area. And then we aggregate that up in our reporting. So small area becomes the unit of area for each of our indicators. And that is a methodology that we feel can be applied elsewhere as well. We looked at issues of symbology at the start because we were conscious that any symbology that we might apply might be fair enough at a national level, but that once the data was rolled up, it may cause issues at a global level if every country participating uses different sorts of symbology. So we've really addressed that by keeping the data and the portrayal separate and using smart mapping to take care of how the data is portrayed. And that's been particularly useful for stimulating engagement, especially where we do multivariate mapping. If I flick back to the site for a moment, if we go back in here and take a look at one of those measures that we looked at a little while ago. So if we look at this SDG here, unemployment rates at electoral division level, and we bring that into ArcGIS using the Create Web Map link, we can start to explore the variables that we've collected there in a little bit more detail. So in this case, we're showing the percentage of unemployed persons in each of those electoral areas. But we can also add to that, let's say, the total number of unemployed people. So we get both a rate and a total. And you see that smart mapping takes care of the portrayal and gives us a graduated circular symbol to show the number of people who are unemployed and an increasing red color to show the rate. And you can see here, for instance, in Dublin, there's a clear north-south, east-west divide within Dublin City that can be useful for policymakers when they look at that data. And we've also dealt with copyright and license. We've decided to apply Creative Commons 4.0 to cover all the data on the site. And in technical terms, we've bulk applied that license to the content items on ArcGIS using the admin tool software, which is available from the ArcGIS marketplace to do that in bulk. So in terms of engagement with the goals, to stimulate engagement, we decided to take a story map approach. So rather than just provide flat data in tables or in choropleth maps, we've sought to provide a narrative with rich multimedia to beef up the story that we're trying to tell around the goals and to engage various different audiences ranging from decision makers in the public sector to the public themselves and non-governmental organizations. And the anecdotal evidence definitely from the government-based decision makers is that this is very much the way to go. They've really liked this. The other thing that the story maps have enabled us to do is they've allowed us to invite what you might call guest authors to participate. So these can be subject matter experts in the different domains covered by the goals, and they can combine their expert opinion with our authoritative data, and by doing so bring a level of interpretation to the measures and indicators. And if I flip back to the site quickly, I might be able to show you a little bit of what I mean by this. So we've created a number of exemplar story maps on the site at the moment just to get us going in a number of the different goals. I'm going to view this one here, which is to do with goal 1 and 8, which is the changing patterns of poverty and unemployment in Ireland. So here we've combined various different layers from our data sets into an interactive narrative using text and imagery and of course maps. In this case, the maps are dynamic maps, so we can click on them and return information about them. In this case, it's our time series that we looked at a little while ago, but in a much more sort of digestible form, I believe, here. And we can zoom and pan around the map. And we can guide the user on this side of the screen through the narrative that we want them to go through to understand what's actually happened, in this case, in terms of unemployment in Ireland. And luckily, the situation with regard to unemployment in Ireland is improving dramatically since the recession years. So this statistic here speaks volumes. At the moment, we have over 1,500 electoral divisions with a 10% less or less unemployment rate, whereas in 2011 there were only 442. And we can use the story map to contrast those two layers by bringing in the 2011 data and overlaying it with the 2016 data. And you can see the change in the unemployment rate graphically displayed there. And this is the sort of thing that really catches the attention of decision makers and has been really, really useful from an engagement perspective, because when people see these figures and then see the map illustrating the change, they really get to grips with what's going on, and more importantly, from a political level, what's going on within their own bailiwick. So by far the most positive engagement has occurred around these story maps, and this particular one that I showed you has had over 2,000 views since we published it a number of weeks ago. In terms of where we're at, we've established the framework and we've done the groundwork in terms of building a site to monitor and visualize progress against the goals. But there's lots more to be done. And most of that is around continuing to catalog, source, publish, and workflow and publish data to do with the goals. Add additional data on other goals to the site, generate time series, which people feel are particularly useful to show progress. It's one thing showing a static snapshot in time, but it's better if you can show progress over time. And we also want to author additional story maps, hopefully with third-party guest authors that we can reach out to and get involved and engage with the project and the site. And also, we want to participate with Esri and the UNSD on the roll-up of our national data to a global level. So thanks for your attention. That's an introduction to the Ireland experience. And I am going to change over to, I believe, Graham now to take it forward.
Great, thank you, Eamon, so much. That's incredible work. And I did want to mention real quick, if you have questions for anybody at the time, please submit them through the questions panel, and we'll get to them at the end. So Eamon, you had a small team, you used resources that existed, and you did a lot of configuration opposed to starting from scratch with brand new material. You had great work across departments, across organizations. People were contributing. It really speaks to how active people can get and how enthusiastic people can get when they can see the finish line, so to speak. They can see the results coming. It's not just making open data and walking away. It's making open data over 100 layers, which is phenomenal, and then making engagement out of those 100 layers. It's not just saying, here they are, go for it. The site is a great start, but the engagement will come when you, like you said, when you activate those decision makers, getting them involved. So one other point before Graham goes into talking about the hub, the work that Ireland and some of the other countries are doing around this research initiative, it can be shared as templates. So while open data and the hub are configurable products, we can take that another step further. So I'd like to leave that there and let Graham sort of take the ball and show you where the hub is today and where it's going and how that relates to the Sustainable Development Goals.
Thanks, Adam. So I'm here to talk a little bit about the ArcGIS Hub as a product. Just to step back and give you a view of where it's been with open data sites and where it's going, and how we want to use it to help drive these initiatives. And initiatives is, kind of a broad sense, but they can really be any type of goal you want to achieve. And the targets from the UN Sustainable Development Goals are obviously prime candidates for something like that. Then I want to talk about how you can use initiatives to drive active engagement and where we're kind of trying to get more people involved with the data and hopefully, a resource for people and policymakers. And then talk a little bit about the capabilities in there, and I'll give a demonstration. So a quick kind of history of where this application has been is, we started as this open data application, which was a platform for sharing data via websites. You saw a good kind of demonstration of that just now with the downloading and visualization of the data. And this is a web map made probably a few months ago that looked at all of the sites that are public out there since March and how many views they get. A good example of one that we had over the summer in the United States was a site to respond for Hurricane Harvey, and you can see it's quite a large circle, a lot of views on that one. And this is just an example of one of those sites, just like we saw just now. We see people do sites like this to share data, at many different levels of government and nonprofit. So at the national level, at the local level, so this is Johns Creek compared to Kenya, and then even at the department level, making a site, for every aspect of a local government. But the reason, this is kind of where open data had been, but we started to see a couple people do more things with websites and pages. And they started to transition from, data sites only to goal or initiative-based sites. So this is Loudoun County in Virginia in the US. And they feature not their data front and center, but the problems that they're trying to solve around transportation, the future, and getting active participants. And they want in their site, not just for people to find data and interact with the data, they want the community to become engaged. They want information, they want opinions. In some cases, they actually want help gathering data about an area, where data sets may not exist and cannot be simply aggregated, they need to be created. The other thing that we saw as a company is that a lot of these problems are not specific to one area. I think every community is, kind of taking on some similar problems. They may change depending on geographically where they are. Like not everybody has to handle hurricanes, but the types of problems are patterned. And so this kind of fired off a light bulb in a couple people to say, hey, we need to make a platform that makes it easier to rally around goals and to share those with others and other governments and try to kind of get everybody involved. So we want to turn aspirations into initiatives. And at the top, we have kind of what everybody aspires to be, but we want real actionable initiatives that you can agree with and empathize with, and that actually have real points of engagement. And again, the targets within each sustainable development goal are very much structured this way. So you can kind of see a couple of examples here. And if you think about your own living in a community, what would be the initiatives you would want your government to pursue, and what are they doing right now, and what data are they using to do that? We want to make the answers to that a lot more clear and findable by anybody. So we're releasing the hub, and we released the hub with the goal of transforming how our customers engage and collaborate with their community by focusing on these initiatives. And I'm going to walk through a couple of the features. So we're basically trying to rally around collaboration and data sharing in this initiative kind of framework. And we're working with all of our customers to identify a hub like initiative template which can be authored in partnership from Esri with a local government, national agency, an international agency, or a nonprofit. And we can organize templates of content and data requirements that other governments can join. So the idea is that you have a really good idea of how to kind of solve some of these problems and a good starting place of the data you'll need. And initiatives can help standardize what data inputs are asked and what applications best feature that data and make for an engaging experience. Within an initiative, we have a gallery of these, and this is from humble beginnings, but we want to basically take and make our best practices and best practices from various customers available for others to join. So each tile in this gallery is a different problem you can solve, and this will be a very much a growing thing, but also aligned with both the SDGs as well as local problems, as well as even internal initiatives. Really kind of depends on who we're working with. Inside an initiative, front and center, just like we just saw, is a website, kind of like a home base. And this website has a number of sections. We saw kind of a couple of pioneering customers lead the way on this, but there's usually what the initiative is, why it's important, the key measures, and then just like you saw, apps that let you get more detail. They could be story maps, they could be interactive web mapping applications, and they basically let you visualize the problem and get you introduced to the data being used to measure it. Underneath these sites, we're still doing data sites, so you could still access the raw data and download it and access the APIs and the data tables, but those things are kind of like supporting evidence as opposed to being the primary purpose. And we are looking at ways to templating surveys and data collection vehicles specific for each initiative so that we're able to collect information back from the community. And each initiative internally likely has a team of people who care about it. So the idea that you can share all of this content and edit this content in small groups that are in charge of achieving this initiative in a broader organization. We want to use these sites to drive engagement and to help achieve the initiative with the community. The first thing is we want it to, these sites will be, shareable on social media. You'll be able to access them, quickly understand what it is, dive into things like story maps for more detail, and kind of understand it at that informing level, but also connect people to surveys that we recommend for this initiative, having the ability for the community to sign up and follow the initiative to receive updates, and even going as far as to having a place to schedule events around that problem. So these are all features, the ability to sign up with social media on an initiative, the survey taking with identity so you know who you're getting a survey from, the ability to have those types of events, and for actually community members to create content. Maybe it's pictures, maybe it's points on a map, maybe they want to upload a PowerPoint or a PDF. But what we're really doing is GIS kind of capabilities for everyday people. So let me show off what that looks like. I jump over here to hub.arcgis.com. You can still search all data on our kind of open data section. So all of Ireland's data, when they make it public, will be available to search here. You can find their site, search just their data sets there. This is kind of the existing functionality that people are making with data sites. But behind the scenes, there's an administration of each hub, and we have the same kind of layout. We have sites, initiatives, and community. Historically, people would make websites, feature their data, and kind of hope people would arrive at those sites. And we are trying to, again, get people to think more about the problems they're solving and then filling in the data and applications underneath and making a more engaging experience. So on this initiative experience, you have this ability to join initiatives that are templated with partnerships with customers, like our customers. And even create your own if you don't see it, an initiative template you want. And each template comes with a number of things inside it. So I'm going to pick Vision Zero, which is a initiative about reducing pedestrian fatality. This initiative has a number of different solutions in it that we recommend as a starting point if you were to undertake this as an objective. The first is a website. So if I click edit, you can see I get kind of a first shot at this website. We include imagery that is licensable, so you can use the images that we have if you want. We can connect data to it and recommended charting and visualizations of the key measures. Connect to the applications that are part of the initiative. So again, other solutions that you bring into this initiative to work on, like a story map or something else, you can automatically see on this website. And then our best practices, we kind of, through our experience working with people who have done Vision Zero, there's certain things they want to highlight. So just kind of generic, these are the things we want people to know. Here's a survey that you can take. These are the next upcoming events. And then underneath everything, we have the data related to this initiative, in case you're more of a data type thinker. And this was all templated. So you could click a button and get this website template and then adapt it to your own local area and provide your own data however you want. This application, though, for example, is one that has not been set up. And this is something that is recommended, a app to visualize collisions in your area. So if I was to set this up, I would click Add Data, and this screen actually asks us tell us the location of your collision data. And we're looking for 2 attributes in there. So it's actually enforcing a schema, which is nice because they're going to get an application out of it, but it gives guidance as to what data you need to help manage this initiative. So I'm going to go find my collision data, which is conveniently here, and select that. And this is a point data set of collisions. And it asks for number of injuries and number of fatalities. That's kind of a basic set of data. Obviously, with collisions, there's a whole lot more that you want, but we're trying to strike a balance of just the amount of information that is reasonable to make an engaging, application. I have a feeling a lot of local governments will provide a lot more data. So I'm going to pick major injuries, and I'm mapping basically my attributes to what the app is requesting. And now that I've configured my data, I can get a copy of this app. And what it does behind the scenes is it makes all the appropriate, ArcGIS content, web maps, the application. It also shares everything to this initiative's team, the group behind the scenes that allow everybody who is part of the initiative's team to kind of work on this application. And then if I view it, you'll see that I get a copy of this application. It's zoomed all the way out because I don't have an org extent, because this is a mythical city of X, but I happen to live in Washington, DC, and my collision data can come to life in an application I could feature on my website. So it gives you an idea. There can be a lot of different solutions here, story maps, applications. We're not going to just come up with these. We want to partnership with somebody who's doing this initiative and find out really what worked. And then once we have something that works, like a really good kind of template, we can make it available to others. So another good example is, we worked with some customers and found out that these are some of the surveys that that customer needed to gather more insightful data. So that's kind of the setting up side of it. And you can also, you may have really great existing content. So by all means, bring that in, and that will simply, share it to the right places. You may want to make something new. So we have some kind of blank templates for you. You're not kind of forced to use what we think is good. It's just a starting point. And you can bring in your colleagues to help you do this for each initiative. And we'll kind of control behind the scenes the right access so that they can edit things and do all that for you. But let's take a look at that website again, but instead of looking at it from somebody who's building it, let's look at it from somebody who's not. So I'm going to switch browsers and log in kind of as a incognito anonymous person to see what it would look like to become kind of a participant on this initiative. So say I found this website through social media or something else, and I read through its content. I explore some of these applications, which can be opened. These are the templates that were configured. This one shows high-risk streets in my area. There's a story map for more details about the narrative as to why this is important. I look at the pledge and I say, on my block, there's a lot of problems and I want to become involved with this. At the bottom, there's a follow button that lets me basically subscribe to updates about this initiative, and also gives me capabilities in ArcGIS kind of behind the scenes. So if I click sign in, for Hub customers, we have this ability to sign up using social media. So I can actually click sign up, and you're gonna have to just bear with me as I incognito log into my Google account. But we're able to use social credentials, just like you can in ArcGIS. Authorize myself. And what it will do is create an account in a separate community organization for this mythical city of X. And that allows me to then follow this initiative, which will add me to a list and subscribe me for updates. And I'll kind of show you what that looks like on the other side. It also lets me take any surveys that I want with identity now that I have kind of an authenticated user. And the nice thing about signing in with social credentials is that user has an email address and kind of a linked profile. So it's easier to kind of prove that the person who's taking your survey, is actually somebody and not just a bot or something else, to hopefully get high quality data. On the other side, if I'm a Hub administrator and I'm kind of looking at my initiative, I can click this initiative community link, and it takes me over to the members section of the community tab, where I can now see Graham Hudgens has joined. I need to get a picture apparently, and I followed a single initiative. So this gives me an idea of who's interested in what, and these members can now actually upload content to that community organization, and they can comment on data sets, and they can attend events. So we can actually schedule events and hang the event page and registration to that event off of the initiative's website. So if we wanted to have, let's say, a bicycle safety course, and we're capped to 30 people, we can actually register for attendance there. And Graham Hudgens, the Gmail account, can actually register here and attend the event. And the Hub kind of keeps track of all of that engagement for you. At the high level, the goal is that you want to try to drive membership and get identities of the people who are active with the local government at achieving that objective, and really drive engagement and give them capabilities. Let them upload content, let them take surveys, even provide, for our homelessness initiative, an application to, once a year survey homelessness and take pictures and upload things like that. So really trying to turn involved citizens into active participants around problems, and not just around data sites. We want to kind of get to this level where citizens can engage about a specific event, and then the local government can partner with those engaged citizens to achieve things. And to tie it back to what we saw earlier, every sustainable development goal probably has a pool of interested people, and we're going to be working with customers to identify basically what would we want people to do, what would help improve, what data do they need to gather, what kind of information can be gathered or collected, and what do we want them to learn about that initiative to help solve it, to help achieve the goal and achieve the measure. So this has been a quick overview. You can still use the Hub to launch data sites, and that's a great use of it. We're just trying to evolve kind of beyond that to help think more about the problems you want to solve and kind of package your content in that way. And hopefully, as more people kind of adopt this way of thinking, the gallery of initiatives will grow, and we will be able to offer more and more starting points around each of these problems, so that hopefully you don't come here and don't see the initiative you want. You create a new one, but hopefully as this grows out, more people will create initiative templates that are good starting points. So I'm going to transition back to Adam.
Okay, thank you, Graham. That was great. So what we saw there, and I think one of the key phrases you said was turning aspirations into initiatives. And this idea of initiatives may be something that's new to you, but ultimately it's a core concept that I think we're all trying to get to and rally around. We had a colleague of ours describe an initiative as, and I think we're all familiar with the Microsoft Office suite, using Microsoft Word, you can start a blank document and start from scratch, right? Or you can use a new template within Microsoft Word to create a recipe, and it fills in with the basic information, and you basically sort of plug in your own bits to the template. And I thought that was a really good analogy for what an initiative is. Obviously, there's a lot more behind it, but hopefully that gives you a good baseline in understanding initiatives and really the potential that you can use with them. And like both Eamon and Graham mentioned, the SDGs are a great framework. They give us a lot of initial capabilities to understand what we need to do to achieve these goals. Good health and well-being, no poverty, those are sort of the overarching goals. But when you bring it down to the local level, you get to things like leaving no one behind and how do we bring in the priorities of our national plans, of our local plans, and that's where you can really use these initiatives to inspire that local action. So what I'm going to do now is share my screen and we will go through just a bit more. And really, where I want to wrap up today is have you all think about who is that SDG community? Who are those people that you want to connect with? Is it people within your nonprofit circle? Is it people within your community? Do you want to reach across to other counties and other states and other foundations and create collaboration amongst your peers and colleagues? How do you engage the people at those levels? We've seen story maps, we've seen applications. What are the right tools for the right audience? How do you get that message across to those people where they live? And ultimately, how do we encourage people to take action? Because without that step, we're not going to get anywhere close to achieving those goals. And ultimately, I wanted to make sure and stress that as Esri, we are committed to our users. So we want to support you with all of the products and the applications and the APIs. Everything we build is trying to support our user community. We are laser focused in that respect, and we want to make sure that we're hitting those key points. And really, this is only the beginning. It's the last webinar, so we're a little sad this year. But we're coming back next year with more SDG-related content. There'll be a few announcements coming up here at the end of the year. There'll be some more webinars, like I mentioned, for in 2018. We have some great conferences lined up and lots more coming. So please stay tuned to Esri on Twitter and Facebook and Esri_nonprofit for any updates coming your way that way. We just have a few questions that are in the chat window right now. So please feel free to put some more in as we go through a couple of those and we can answer them. Anything related to what I've said, what Eamon presented, or what Graham presented, we'd be happy to discuss. The first one we see, do you see a cutoff point where use of Excel spreadsheets to create feature layers becomes unwieldy? I believe this came in during Eamon's presentation. Eamon, if you'd like to respond to that.
Yeah, I may have given the impression we were using the spreadsheet to create the feature layers, but in fact, we were just using the spreadsheet to manage the creation of the feature layers. So we actually created the feature layers on ArcGIS Online. As I showed, we've a set of standard boundaries that we use, standard geographies that we use for the SDGs, 4 in total, ranging from the nuts 3 down to the small areas. So we uploaded those as feature services, and then we used the spatial join, the relate join, attribute join feature in ArcGIS Online to join each table to those layers as the tables became available from the Central Statistics Office. So for the SDG project, we did the actual work of creating the feature layers on ArcGIS Online itself. I should mention that in parallel with doing the SDG project, those same 3 people also did another project, which was to put the entire Ireland 2016 census online, which involved over 500 layers. And for that process, we actually did the joins in ArcGIS Pro and pushed them up to ArcGIS Online. So in both cases, in neither case did we use Excel to do the actual publication. We really just used it as an aid memoir to the status and condition of each layer.
Great, thank you. The next question for Graham, can Hub be combined with ArcGIS Online, or is it either or?
The hub is actually the website capability that lets you make open data sites is included with ArcGIS Online. The ability to have people sign up and turn on initiative templates, kind of those other two tabs of community and initiatives, is a separate license thing on top of online. But the whole product is intended to run hosted in online.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any more questions. So with that, thank you so much for being a part of this webinar and the entire webinar series. Thank you to our presenters, Eamon and Graham. We do have a short survey. It may take 5 minutes or so of your time, but it would be very helpful for us to have your feedback as soon as the webinar ends. You may be prompted with that, and we'd really appreciate a little bit of your time to fill that out and let us know how we did. And with that, thank you so much. Have a good one.